Hello everyone, and welcome to the second episode of Dungeon Theory. I'm your host, Nahadoth, and today we're going to talk about modes, a concept in music theory that explains many of the classic medieval sounds of dungeon synth melodies. I hope it will be useful to you as you walk the ancient and noble path of dungeon synth. Today we're going to talk about modes. Last week we talked about intervals and major and minor scales, using only white key examples to keep it simple. But as the aesthetic inspiration from a lot of dungeon synth is much older, so are the musical inspirations. The terms major and minor are only about 300 years old, whereas the term mode has described a lot of things in the history of music, from the medieval church modes to the Greek modes described by Aristotle. But today I'm talking specifically about the diatonic modes, which make the most sense on the modern keyboard. The major and minor scale is made up of a pattern of whole steps or whole tones, like this one. Notice I'm skipping one in the middle. Or half steps or semitones, like this, with nothing in between, or that is also a semitone. The entire major scale is made up of this pattern: whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. That means I can take this pattern and start it from any note on the keyboard and end up with a major scale with the first note as the root, like here. Whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, half step. This gives the home note a sense of finality, of arriving. For the natural minor scale, all I'm doing is starting from the sixth note or the sixth degree of the major scale. For C major, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is relative to A minor, and both use the same notes, just starting and ending at a different place. So what happens if you apply that same treatment to every other note in the scale? Starting and ending from D, here's the Dorian mode. Starting and ending from E, here's the Phrygian mode. Lydian from F. Mixolydian from G. Aeolian, also known as natural minor, from A. The Locrian mode from B. And we come back to C. C has a different name in the mode system, known as Ionian. Kind of a cool name. Already you can hear the possibilities. Most of these modes connect clearly to major or minor chords. But the sequence of note has one or two significant differences, and this adds a lot of intrigue to the sound. This sound is used in a lot of what we know of medieval music, as well as various strains of traditional folk music, so it somehow sounds older, less refined. This expands what you can do just using the white keys, but you can also do this with any key. Start with the notes of a major scale, and then try to play the modes connected to it. I'll use the key of A for an example, as I was doing in the intro. Here's the major or Ionian mode, and now B, Dorian. C sharp, Phrygian. D, Lydian. E, Mixolydian. I'll jump down for F sharp, Aeolian. And finally, G sharp, Locrian. we're going to listen to an excerpt from a piece from the band Gothmog from their 1997 album Medieval Journeys. The song is called Blood Drips from My Sword, and we'll listen to a short excerpt from the middle of the piece. The first thing we hear is this harmony getting established with these perfect fifths. As you remember from last week, we talked about the perfect fifth as being a really strong interval, and this really carries in this piece. Especially with the percussion underneath. On top of that, the melody adds a very modal feel. Since we've only seen white keys in this melody so far, I think of this as C Ionian, D Dorian, and E Phrygian. The severity of this interval for Phrygian is a lot different than the normal minor scale. And just that one note difference from the F natural to the F sharp would make a huge difference in the chord progression as well. A more classical way of treating this might be and that changes the feel of the piece almost completely. The other thing I would like to talk about is the use of timing. Dungeon synth is sort of known for having a certain vibe when it comes to timing, so that it doesn't exactly fit into a metronomic click track, especially the earliest examples, like this project. What we hear here is something that is a little bit longer than a square 4-bar phrase. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 2, 3, 4. That little bit of extra time holding on at the end of the phrase is one of the things that contributes to this feeling of wandering. It's not just even phrases organizing the sound, but that little extra time really makes you feel like you're trudging through a stark landscape, at least for me. As always, you can learn a ton from your favorite songs if you simply go to the keyboard and try and pick them out. So I encourage you to try and do that. Like this, I would like to keep analyzing pieces of music. If you have any ideas as to pieces that you think I should cover, please get in touch with me or the organizers of this show, and I would love to take a closer look at them. Until next time, this has been Nahadoth with Dungeon Theory.